Calvary Baptist is back in the Superdome for Louisiana versus all y'all. I'm Jarrett Roser. For Calvary Baptist, he's Luke Miller, senior safety, a member of that great Cavaliers defense that heads into the Superdome for the second time in 3 years after an overtime defensive stand down at Notre Dame of Crowley to advance through a great semifinal matchup. And it's been that type of team, that type of season for the Cavaliers all season. I mean, stout defense, kind of gritty type edge to it, and they showed it again when they needed it most there in the semifinals. Luke, how are we doing coming off of that one and turning the page to another trip to New Orleans?
It feels great. Our team morale is just really high coming off that big win. So, we're just looking to continue that, just continue the winning.
What has stood out about this team? I mean, you and I were talking a couple minutes ago. We've talked about it before. This is not the Calvary team that a lot of folks outside of y'all's building looked at as the one that was going to go make a title run, but y'all were really confident in what y'all had going into the season and have seen it kind of play out over the last few months. What was it about the 25 Cavs that y'all saw this potential from yourselves?
Just coming into this year, just with the big chip on our shoulder, like you said, everybody thinking we lost everybody that we had and we weren't going to be great. We took that almost as motivation just this off season and just coming into this year. So that's just helped us to work really hard just to, not even to put more people on our side, but to just show people that we still are Calvary and we still are just winners at heart.
For you growing up, and obviously your brother Cole was a starter on that state championship team a couple years ago that had a big play there late in that thing. He was a senior last year, graduates. And so you're if we don't count dad, you're the big Miller on campus now as a senior. And to watch you grow up as a young man, a young football player the last few years has been a lot of fun to just kind of see the confidence that you carry with yourself. I mean, when you look at you now versus you 2 years ago, what have you been most proud of in terms of your development and the way that you kind of fit into this team culture, not just as a defensive playmaker, but as a leader in that locker room?
I'd say it was probably my leader mentality. Just, growing up under the same coaches just all my life, Coach Gewen, my dad, just all those coaches that are just in the locker room with us, they just feed into, just your mind and your brain. They just, feed in leader mentality into you. So I've been really proud of how I've stepped up as a leader and just developed in that way.
Coach Gewen, with the win on Friday night, became the all-time career coaching leader in Caddo Bossier history. And when I get a chance to talk with him, he's not going to want to talk about it a lot for himself. But for you, a guy that's in that program under him, how would you describe the type of leader he is from that coaching position and what you feel like has enabled him and this staff around him to have so much success with you guys?
I think a lot of what Coach Gewen does is just really great. He's not scared to tell you what you need to hear, so that part of him just coaching is great. He'll give you exactly what you need to hear, exactly what just will help you get better in that moment. And just outside of just the locker room and outside of, just football, he's almost like a second dad to all of us. He takes care of us, and I feel like it just helps us almost to respect him so much more and just appreciate him so much more that he's able to just – we have a great coach like that can walk us through all these times.
You guys have some great senior leaders, including yourself. You guys have even some juniors that have been playing a lot of ball for a long time already, like Braylon Hulan, who started as an eighth grader? Started as a freshman for sure a couple years ago. Who are some of the guys that maybe we didn't know as much about coming into this season that have impressed you with the way that they've stepped into big roles alongside some of y'all and really kind of run with their opportunities in this team?
I'd say two of them on the defense for sure is Mason Gorley and Will Mary. Just filling big senior roles that we've had last year, huge players, that everybody knew as playmakers and big stat leaders. They really stepped up and they helped just fill holes in our defense that, people might have questioned before we came into this year. And so I've just been really proud of them and just almost shocked by them as they've stepped up and, play a very big key role in our defense now.
We talk about y'all's expectations and knowing the potential that y'all had, but feeling like other people didn't necessarily realize it. Are we at a point now where you feel like, the wake up call has been sent around the state and folks know, okay, this team is one that it was their mistake to have not taken y'all more seriously? Do you feel like that happened Friday night? Do you feel like that happened earlier in the season? What was a point where it started to feel like, okay, some eyes have been opened?
I'd say the earliest one would have been Franklin Parish at home
Yeah.
when we came out with that win. That's when I feel like we woke a few people up. But even now after our last week's win, there's still people out there that still see us as not ready to play this game. Like I've seen stuff all over there saying that it's gonna lopsided matchup, lopsided state championship. So I still feel like we got a lot of more people out there to wake up.
You sound like you might have a little edge in your voice to that. Like you're just a little ticked off that folks still feel that way. Your dad, I think, loves it because he knows the energy that can let him kind of feed it into you guys a little bit. How much does, probably even more so, your dad on the defensive side than Coach Gewen necessarily, but the way that the coaches try to use these opportunities to kind of keep that drive, keep that edge, keep that motivation, how good are they at some of that? I don't know. I think back to 2 years ago and your dad with the big burn the boats energy going into the Superdome, but um, what is that motivation like from this coaching staff for you guys right now?
Especially my dad just being our DC, and we have a big defensive group chat with all the starters and just the key players, and we're constantly just sending quotes in there, sending just reels of people just hating on us, doubting us, and we just get fired up in the group chat. It just motivates us more than anything.
But apparently, this is a good thing. Y'all don't know enough about gambling for Roy Lang's lines to have factored in at any point. Where when Dad tried to say that Roy was saying y'all were underdogs by 7.5 points, y'all just got confused by the half-point thing. Didn't really understand the gambling piece, and so that didn't work out, I heard. All right, so all of this, expectation for you guys, the chip on your shoulder, all of those things. You get into a war down in Crowley on Friday night. And then you have that moment where you guys are able to swarm that final stop and run off as, had probably could have just run straight to Poitras at that point with the energy that y'all had in that play. What are the emotions and excitement like Friday night wrapping it up to realize, okay, one more, we're heading back. We're one of the last two standing in this bracket.
I know there's a lot of pictures of just us after the game, just hugging on each other, loving on each other. It's just, with us, I feel like we're such a tight group of just friends and brothers that we know that this is our last one together, and we're going to do everything that we can to make it, go out with a bang, just go out with a win.
When you start looking at tape and getting ready for this Dunham team, it's the first time that these two schools have met since 2022. And so, not a lot of people on these teams played big roles, at least the last time that y'all squared off. What stands out about these guys? They're obviously a really good team too, to be in this same situation heading to the Superdome. What do you feel like stands out about them on film, or just areas where it seems like, okay, they're really good at this, or this is a place where they can present some challenges?
I'd say one place that they look like they're really good at is they're really resilient and just tough in the way that they play. There's a lot of guys on their team that are willing to go both ways and just willing to make plays on both sides of the ball just to, help their team just make it farther and farther. So I'd say that's something that I feel like they do well.
I feel like there are a lot of things about y'all's teams that y'all would probably like each other a lot if you weren't about to battle
Yeah.
for a state championship. For you guys going into this matchup, what do y'all look at in terms of things that y'all have to take care of this week in order to be successful once again and lift that big trophy, whether it be in terms of how you approach the preparation for it, or just, factors once we kick this thing off on Thursday night? If I say, if this and this happened for Calvary Baptist this week, then they're going to be champs again for the second time in 3 years. What is one of those things, or a couple of those things?
In the locker room, today and just over the weekend, we've talked about we got to be able to clean up the little mistakes that, we showed last Friday and just even the Friday before that. And then another thing that we've been big on is when we go into the game Thursday, we have to be able to make adjustments based on, what we see that's new or based on what we see that's not working. So really big adjustments when we come into the game Thursday.
On the select side, y'all are the only school of the 8 playing for state championships that isn't from South Louisiana. So y'all have the long trip, but y'all also have a fan base that rallies around y'all in a huge way. What is your message to those folks on just what you want to see behind y'all in those stands on Thursday night?
I feel like it's the same thing that we saw last week. Last week we traveled all the way to Crowley. We had a huge fan base come with us, a giant student section. I feel like this week it'll be even bigger, and that stuff it really takes an impact on us when we're playing. Just having a fan base that rallies behind us, we feel like we can do anything with them. So just
He's Luke
encouraging them to come down.
Yeah. He's Luke Miller, senior safety. You can call him Ocho. You can call him Cannonball. You can call him any number of things. Tackle machine on a lot of Friday nights. And he'll be someone to watch on that field on Thursday night this week for sure. Again, the Division III Select State Championship, the 6th-seeded Cavaliers, the 5th-seeded Dunham Tigers will be squaring off, scheduled for a 7 p.m. kickoff on Thursday night. A lot of times these things run a little bit behind, but it'll be the nightcap Thursday night for a great first day of action. Thankful to Luke for talking about it. I'm Jarrett Rosa for Louisiana versus all y'all, and y'all be well. Luke, thanks again, man.
Thank you.